Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Saturday, March 28th, 2020. How are you doing? Are you enjoying your weekend so far? Is it just like any other day because you've been in your house for a week and a half or 2 weeks? A little bit of that going on. Good morning, everybody. Lost him. Ta-da!
I'm back. Sorry. I'm not sure what happened.
His skill and determination. I've got Dr. David Kyle Johnson with me this morning. How are you doing, David? Or
Hi, Chris.
Kyle, I'm sorry.
That's all good.
I got to put my glasses on. I'm sorry. Wife's going to kill me, but I just got to do it. I can't do it without. Good morning, Dr. Johnson. How are you doing? And we also have a special. I just totally trashed that. I always trash the intro and the outro. I got to work on this thing. So, good morning. He's going to be my co-host today. For the first time, he's going to be co-hosting, and we have another special guest. It's Chris Shelton. Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
Good morning.
Lots
Hello.
of Chris's.
Oh, there I am.
There you are.
Yeah, Chris, popular name.
I know. Well, I have deemed myself the amazing Super Chris, and that's how I set myself. There are many Chris's, but I am the amazing Super Chris. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
So far? Good. Looks like you got your internet fixed, Kyle.
Yeah, well, Wi-Fi hotspot.
Look, look you go.
So, well, there's something cool in the camera there that I don't know what I was seeing. Anyway,
yeah,
the Wi-Fi hotspot, as you suggested, Sprint is doing a nice, because of the COVID thing, they're doing a nice, generous, free 50 megabytes or 50 gigabytes a month of hotspot. And so I'm using it specifically for things like this and the occasional Zoom conference with some of my students. I'm not doing Zoom with like all my students. I'm recording videos where I answer questions and submitting them. But I've had some students occasionally want to do something like that where we talk on Zoom. So I've been using it for that. So
that's great. And Chris, I can't imagine anybody doesn't know you. It's anybody who's watching doesn't know you. But if you don't mind, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Of course. I'm a former Scientologist. It's probably the most interesting thing about me. I have been advocating against destructive cults like Scientology, high control groups, authoritarian groups, not just religious ones, by the way. There's a lot of groups out there that aren't religious. And I've been educating myself about that, getting the word out there about that, talking to people about it, and trying to warn folks that, that's a problem out there and something we should be aware of.
That's wonderful. How long have you been doing it? We were talking about this just before the show started. How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, since 2014, I've been on YouTube. I've also written a book about Scientology, so people can check that out. And I have a podcast that I do every week called the Sensibly Speaking Podcast, and we talk about cults, but we talk about a lot of other stuff too. So it's been quite a journey the last 6 years recovering from that Scientology experience and educating the public about it, and about critical thinking, by the way, because that's the big thing I'm really hot on is critical thinking.
Gotcha. Well, this being Sci-Fi Saturday, this should kind of be up your alley, considering
Sci-Fi Saturday. Yep.
I was
thinking that. I wondered if the Scientology topic was selected for Sci-Fi Saturday, since
it's fitting. It's fitting. It works.
It really is. I mean, of course, Kyle and I have this Orville thing we're going to discuss next week. Kyle, is that right? Are you available for that? Next week?
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to hit on that. But Scientology, I didn't intend you to come here and talk about Scientology, Chris, because you've done that. You've been there. You do it all the time. I was hoping we could, if you want, talk about your favorite science fiction other than Scientology.
Really? We don't have to talk about Battlefield Earth?
You don't have to. I was going to bring it up. But,
Oh, that is some classy, trashy sci-fi. That is for sure.
That is hard to watch.
Well, and the original story right behind Scientology was originally suggested, like it was kind of written as a science fiction novel, right? Like,
kind of, yeah. It had sci-fi right from the get-go. Yeah, absolutely. And it just got worse as the years went on until he went total, and decided that, galactic overlords and volcanoes and atomic weapons and all that were the stuff of reality rather than science fiction.
Well, part of it was he was trying to get out of taxes, right?
Oh yeah. He hated taxes, and setting up Scientology as a church was a really genius move in a lot of ways, as far as far as that goes.
Yeah, I assume you've seen the South Park on Scientology. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And by the way, that is what Scientologists believe.
Yeah. That's yeah. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
case there's
Absolutely.
any question about that. Now, but you got to pay to get there.
Right.
So, you know, like all the years I was involved, I never heard that story. I only found out about that after I got out.
Oh wow,
Really?
really? So it's like,
Yeah,
so
because
they're able to. They're not able to keep it from the general public, like the people, you know, like Matt and Trey can know from South Park, right? But if you're in the cult, they keep you from knowing it until you get really, really high up.
that's right.
Ah,
right.
that's interesting. That's
It's about a $500,000 entry fee to get to that.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I went into the wrong business. All right.
So said L. Ron Hubbard, right? Or L. Ron Hubbard. So
Yeah.
said he. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I mean, that was for me. That was my. The only way I knew of Scientology was through South Park and what they said on South Park.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So from the
Yeah.
beginning, I always saw it as like this crazy,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I grew up in it, so I had a whole different view.
Yeah, I can imagine being born into it that's just phenomenal to me.
Yeah, it was a whole different worldview. It's a whole different worldview.
I read Going Clear, or listened to Going Clear. I did the audiobook for Going Clear, but that was quite a few years ago, so I don't know how much I remember. But I do remember while listening to it being appalled at what he got away with and what he did and how gullible people were in falling into it. It's just amazing.
That's right. Yeah, it's you know, slightly serious statement, but true, is that it is amazing what you can sell people when you give them just a little bit at a time. You know, because you can get people from a place where they're perfectly normal and happy and everything's great to absolutely crazeballs if you you know, slowly guide them to it. Versus, oh, let me give you everything on day one, and people go, "What are you, wacko?" I forget it, right? It's interesting. It's been a fascinating study learning how that works.
Hey, Chris. I'm sorry.
Chris.
I'm sorry. I don't. If you don't mind, Chris, real quick, I had a request from the chat. A couple things. One is that Kyle, I think you've got some kind of noise in the background or something that's plaguing. I just letting you know. I didn't know if you knew it or not.
Let me. I don't hear it, so let me see if I can.
I think it's you. Can you hear it, Chris?
Nope.
Yeah, I hear a little bit of feedback coming. I guess it's from Kyle.
If you have headphones, that would be ideal.
Yep, I do. Give me a second.
We love you long time.
All right, I will. Give me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay. Chris, while he's gone, we can talk about him. We can make fun of him. I mean, no, he's awesome.
Yeah,
he's
right,
awesome.
right.
I have a question from.
He's got a pretty nice collection of stuff back there. He's got in his studio space. That's nice.
Oh yeah, well, we can go over that because he has got the Star Trek. He's my man with Star Trek. Link Thomas, and from the chat wants to ask if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick rundown of Scientology. Not everybody knows the story.
Absolutely. Okay, it's a big topic, so I'm really going to give you the summary version.
Yes.
One, Scientology is a money-making scam that uses religious cloaking to hide the fact that it's a money-making scam. Let's be super clear about that from the get-go, because I don't want anybody thinking it's a legit religion. I mean, you know, there's arguments to be made about that, but I just want to be clear my position from the get-go.
Of course.
Now, that having been said, the idea with Scientology is that all of us are spiritual entities or spiritual beings, and that's who we really are. We're not a body. We own a body. We have a body. We possess a body. We live life through a body, but this is not who we are. And as a spiritual being, we have lived countless lives in the past and will continue to live into the future forever. There's no killing us as spirits. So what Scientology seeks to do is rehabilitate your spiritual abilities and perceptions so that you achieve a godlike state of existence. What we understand as God, with a Christian God or the Islamic God, this all-powerful, all-knowing entity, that's what Scientology promises to deliver to you, that you will become that. And you can go off and make your own universe and do your own thing and whatever. But that's basically the idea of it in a nutshell.
I have to say, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So am I clear and everything's good now?
It sounds like you're doing great now. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I have to say that if I'm choosing between like Christianity and Scientology, and I have absolutely no evidence for either one, right? So there's no evidential like preference for which one is true or whatever. And so I'm just choosing, like, Scientology sounds like a much better deal. I'd much rather turn into a god than have to worship a god, right? And do what that god says, et cetera, right? So
given choices.
Yeah, like if I have to choose between the two, right? That sounds like a better deal, right? So
well, I would, I'd certainly say if both were true and you had the choice, I would definitely go Scientology because that's all about, making you God, right?
Right.
But none of them are true, so they're both horrible.
Well,
but I know but Christianity is a spectrum, and I grant that. I'm not black and white thinking on that. I acknowledge that religion is a necessary element in society. I'm not actually down with religion and destroy it all. That's not my position.
Okay.
That's one of my positions. Just point that out. I'm trying, real quick, I want to take a moment and just say hi to everybody in the chat who's joined us. The numbers are growing and it gets harder and harder to say hi to everybody. So I'm going to hit a few. Junk Shop Library. Of course, there's Link Thomas. Kristen, best name ever, is here. He's wonderful. Paul Camish is here. Amiga Nuts. Boomer U is here. There's quite a few people here. Thank you all for showing up. And of course, thank you to my guest host, Dr. Kyle Johnson and Chris Shelton. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because sometimes I forget and then they taser me through the bad. It's not good. So
I was gonna, before my feedback interfered, and I'll just get this out and then we can go back to what. But I was going to mention to Chris that earlier you mentioned how it's this progression, right? Like you kind of introduce them to one little ridiculous thing after another until you get to batshit crazy, right?
Yeah.
In my experience, so one of the things that we have in common is we're very big on critical thinking. So I teach critical thinking classes on a pretty regular basis. I'm teaching a couple right now. Online now, because we're doing online learning at King's, but they're usually, my regular classes I teach at King's College. And my experience has been the reverse is also true, that if you want to get someone out of it, you want to teach people critical thinking. So not even if you're just trying to get them out of Scientology or something like that, but if you're just wanting them to teach them critical thinking, you can't do it in a day. It's this progressive step-by-step process where you get them to learn little lessons one at a time, to come to value evidence, to come to see fallacies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it takes there's a huge difference between teaching even the same material. If I had my students for 2 weeks and all they did was my class and they really engaged in it for 2 weeks and we did all the same material, but we crammed it into 2 weeks, it would not work as well as if I have a whole semester to do this and get you, and because they go off and think about it every time. It really is this kind of thing that you have to digest and come to terms with and think about on a daily basis and apply it to your daily life as you go and then learn a new lesson, etc. It just takes time. It's not something you can do in a sitting or two to teach somebody critical thinking. It's a laborious task, I have found.
I agree with you. I will curious about your what do you think that critical thinking is not necessarily something native to or inherent in our thinking process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
it's
in my
Gil,
course,
right?
yeah, absolutely. And so in my course, the big questions of philosophy for great courses, I have the first 4 lectures are kind of basic logic, critical thinking stuff. And one of the kind of arguments I make is some people might say, why would you trust reason? Look at all the different ways it can lead you astray. And so I talk about all these bad arguments that people give. And a lot of them are, and so what I end up doing is making this distinction between instinctive reasoning and careful reasoning. And instinctive reasoning is what we kind of do automatically. Often it's driven by emotion, although there's reasoning behind it. And it is monumentally unreliable. This is what generates like instinctive reasoning is what generates hasty generalizations. You look at a couple of people, they belong to a certain race, they're behaving that way, and so you conclude that they all behave that way, right?
Yep.
That's how I roll.
That's one small step in a direction of a bad thing, therefore we'll end up in the bad thing. That's a slippery slope fallacy.
Right.
I could go on and on and on, like all of these fallacies, but they're all instinctive reasoning, right? That's is
right.
extremely unreliable, and that's essentially what evolution selected for us, right? Like evolution selected these mechanisms in us that get us to reason quickly, because sometimes we do, to survive we need to reason quickly, right? We see a rustle in the bushes and we think, it's a tiger, and so we run away or whatever.
Right.
But careful reasoning is what our frontal lobe, which developed for other reasons but also allows us to do, and careful reasoning is reliable, and that is definitely a learned skill. We have to learn how to dampen our instinctive reasoning and not rely upon it, and realize when it is unreliable and leading us astray, and learn how to trust careful reasoning to get us to what's actually the case. And that's definitely a learned skill.
And that is the challenge, because people, well, they're instinctive.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's like all the internet is instinctive reasoning, right? Like
Exactly. Wow. Cool,
Well,
man.
Let me ask you then, since we got all those things out the way, what's your favorite sci-fi? Because that's what most people are here hitting you up, ready for sci-fi stuff.
Boom. Good.
Go.
Oh God, my favorite. Jesus. Actually, that's a tough ass question.
Well, let's do the philosophy we always cover on this, because it's just one of those questions we always. So we'll start with this: going down on a desert island, Star Trek or Star Wars, which would you save? You can only save one.
Trek.
For me, Star Trek, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
for me,
okay.
Star Trek.
I haven't had anybody except for Mama Atheist who has never seen Star Trek. Only she has said Star Wars so far.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with where Star Wars is kind of gone and stuff. There are definitely things about Star Wars that I will always love, and I'm down with the Mandalorian. I'm very impressed with it. It's what the sequel should have been, but Star Trek is universal. Star Trek is humanism writ large. Star Trek is a non-utopian but optimistic view of the future. Star Trek embodies every value I cherish and hold dear in terms of human rights. So I'm all about Star Trek at the end of the day. It's a much stronger and more powerful use of storytelling to forward, positive humanistic ideas that are universal. And that's why I love Star Trek so much. And one of the reasons I love Star Trek so much, as well as just the fact that some of the stories just absolutely rock. And as far as I'm concerned, now I'm old school though, because I'm 50 years old. I'm original series guy. I'm not in the next generation, and all the other series. That wasn't me. So I'm also into the movies, and for me, Wrath of Khan embodies everything that was great about Star Trek. So that's my Trekkie attitude about it.
So you're not. So you said you're not even into the classic series or TNG. You like the movies?
No, I am. I'm original series.
Okay, but not TNG. So you like the original
TNG.
series in the movies, but not TNG. Okay,
correct.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I was disappointed with New Generation or Next Generation, and I had an attitude about it, and then I realized, actually fairly recently, that I was wrong in having an attitude about it, because it is now a multi-generational experience for people, and I can't judge another generation on their values. I'm my own generation, so little conceited of me to go, well, that's not real Star Trek. Of course, it's real Star Trek. It's just for another class of people who are having a whole different upbringing and experience in a different society. So I'm down now. Now I'm like, yeah, bring it. All the full Star Trek experience. Let's all do it, and let's just love it, And
yeah, I have to be careful about that with Discovery, because I might have like a similar reaction to Discovery. I think I initially had an original kind of a reaction like that,
right?
To Discovery, because it's just so different than, like, you can see my Trek here, right? Like TNG is my favorite.
Yep.
But I just feel like they're doing something different, and that's perfectly fine to do something different. DNG did something a little bit different, right? They're all doing something a little bit different.
Exactly.
And so I've learned to. I mean, it's not my favorite or whatever, but I've definitely learned to respect and enjoy Discovery. I think that it's fun. But along that line, I kind of think that the Orville, in a certain kind of way, is Star Trek. That's actually the first chapter of the book, Chris. It's not my chapter. Somebody else wrote this kind of chapter. Is the Orville Star Trek or not? And if not, what exactly is it? What its relations? Really good, really good. So when the book is out, we'll definitely have to talk more about that. But yeah, like I think that's the plus. Besides, if you're on a desert island, there's just more hours of stuff to watch. If you
That's true.
Star Trek
Exactly. That's right. Unless you throw in Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah, Rebels and the Clone Wars, and we got the Mandalorian now, and but still, I think Star Trek's got more hours of footage.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, absolutely, it does. Yeah,
no doubt.
I started watching. Not Rebels. What was the other one? The Clone Wars. I started watching Clone Wars, and I was mildly impressed. It gave me a little bit of a different view on the Star Wars universe and what was happening between the movies, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting take. I had.
Yeah, some of the stories are,
not bad.
Some of the stories are pretty good.
Yeah, and a little short, encapsulated. Had 20-minute, half-hour shots, so you get a little shot of it, and it's not too much. You don't have to deal with too much crap.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the views. So there's two Clone Wars. There's like the series cartoon, and then there's like the movie. And I think that the kind of prevailing view is one of them is essentially like what kind of really happened, and one is like imperial propaganda, like the way that it plays, and like the overtones and the voiceovers and that kind of stuff. Like, this is the way you're supposed to view the Clone Wars and what really happened, and the bold nobleness of the warriors, and the other one's kind of like, this is kind of what really went down or whatever. But I forget which one is which. But
I haven't seen.
I haven't had a chance to watch Rebels yet, so I haven't seen how that one plays out. I've only watched a few episodes of Clone Wars.
I've played some of the games, but I haven't. A lot of the Star Wars outside of the movies, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
A Brain Bug. Do you remember Brain Bug from Starship Troopers?
Yeah.
The Brain Bug from Starship Troopers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we actually have a Brain Bug in our chat. Been a follower of mine for a week or so now. I think maybe. Anyway, Brain Bug wants to know, best giant space bugs, the Alien series or Starship Troopers? I think they're just different. They're different. Yeah, I think aliens are the better. I don't know. Just depend. Aliens are scary bugs. Those are other. Starship Troopers were always fun. It was just.
Yeah. So
Starship Troopers were nasty.
Yeah. By alien bug, do they mean the
xenomorphs?
Is that what they're talking about? Yeah.
Facehuggers or.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like the big mother or whatever. I don't think of as a bug.
No. Xenomorphs were called bugs starting in Aliens, I think. That's just what they say. But anyway, Bug Hunt. They mentioned Bug Hunt, going on Bug Hunt. Right. Stuff like that. Anyway.
There were Starship Trooper callbacks from Alien there.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you guys know this, if either one of you followed Firefly or Firefly. Yeah, Firefly. In Firefly, there was this scene where they robbed a train. And when they robbed the train, they had to pass through this corridor full of Union soldiers. They were all wearing Starship Trooper uniforms. Those were all the uniforms all those guys were wearing. And a lot of that, I believe, were Starship Trooper uniforms.
Oh, that's cool. That's
helmets
cool.
and
interesting. Well, and the Starship Trooper uniforms were similar in many ways to the Colonial Marines, if I remember right, from Aliens. Similar. Yeah. I mean, not the same, but there were similarities. There were similarities there.
I really enjoyed.
I was disappointed that they didn't really do the jumpsuits in the movie the way that they were in the book. I don't know if you guys read the book Starship Troopers, but
no.
The suits were boingy. I mean, you could bounce from like 50, 100 yards in a shot. Really? They had these suits that you could jump in, and they were I think they were called jumpsuits, but they were they would send them down to the planet, but they wouldn't send them down with just a gun. They had this full-on suit, and you could bounce around and stuff. So they were more the individual troops were a bit more powerful in the book.
Sounds more like Live Die Repeat.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, there was some inspiration there.
I really enjoyed that movie. That's
I can't really watch Tom Cruise anymore, so
well yeah, I
this
imagine.
doesn't work for me.
Doesn't work for
Just
you.
doesn't.
Understood.
No, I just know too much about him as a person. I can't suspend disbelief watching Tom Cruise anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Well, you know, you
Yeah.
would think you'd enjoy watching him get killed over and over again.
I did. I saw the movie.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like him
I
either, and that's what she likes about the movie. It's like
he
watch,
keeps getting killed.
yeah, over and over.
Is that what that movie was called? Was Live Die Repeat?
Live Die Repeat. It had two names. Live
Yeah,
Die
what was
Repeat.
it? End of Tomorrow or something?
Edge
Oh,
of,
okay, that's
Edge
how
of
I know.
Tomorrow
It's
or
in
something.
Tomorrow, I guess. Okay,
Yeah, something like
okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, I like Starship Troopers better than Aliens. People are going to hate me for that, but I really like
Ah.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah, no, me
And so
too.
I think I would choose the bugs on Starship Troopers. But that's actually my sci-fi course. I have a whole lecture on Starship Troopers and fascism and that kind of stuff. And yeah.
That must be ironic for
does
you.
your lecture come from the book or from the
Say again,
movie?
Chris?
Only? Does your lecturing come just from the movies, or do you include the book as well? Because there was some
It's
pretty intense content
yeah.
in the book.
Yeah, so it's mainly about the movies because the entire sci-fi course is media driven, so it's television shows and movies. But I do mention the book in the lecture because part of the lecture is getting at like why in the world am I like this is a science fiction course, but it's like a science fiction and philosophy course, right? Why in the world am I talking about this? You know, this teenage shoot 'em up Starship Troopers in a what's supposed to be a fairly serious course on philosophy. And the argument is that a lot of people misunderstood the movie and did not realize that it was essentially anti-fascist, and that it's Verhoeven, right, that did Starship Troopers, right?
Yep.
That he intended it to be anti-fascist, and that he was concerned about the rise of fascism in America, and that essentially what it is there's no good guys in the movie. All the good guys or whatever, all the protagonists, it's all fascist. It is a giant fascist society, and it's completely useless for anything but shooting at bugs. And the reason that when I bring up the novel is that it's the novel was written by, oh shoot, the name escaped me.
Robert Heinlein.
Yeah, Heinlein, right? Heinlein actually intended it as kind of pro-fascist. Like
I was going to bring that point up. I'm glad you meant yes. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so that's the kind of interesting thing about it, is that he actually intended to be pro-fascist, and so Verhoeven is turning it on its head and saying, I'm actually going to use this same story but show it to be against fascism and how ridiculous fascism is, right?
Right.
And so that's and so I kind of like in that lecture I kind of like spill out like me trying to figure out what the hell this movie's about, and I kind of go piece by piece and go, wait a minute, that they kind of look like Nazis, and look at this and that right, and you realize, oh, I get it now. This isn't a shoot 'em up. I'm not supposed to actually like enjoy this, right? And one of the criticisms of one of the lessons that comes out of it is that Verhoeven may be right, because most people did misunderstand the movie. They didn't get that it was satire or that it was anti-fascist, right? They just saw it as like just kind of as American, right? The point I kind of make it, right, is that people, if fascists will not recognize a satire of fascism, right? Fascists won't realize they're being made fun of. They will look at a satire of fascism and go, oh yeah, that looks kind of fun. That looks kind of cool. Like, I don't see anything like ridiculous about that at all, right? Like they won't recognize it as satire. And so the fact that so many American critics did not recognize that Starship Troopers was satire is kind of like evidence that Verhoeven was right to be concerned, right? Like
very right to be concerned. Very
that's right. That's the kind of argument I make in that particular lecture in the sci-fi course.
Yeah. Plus, there's what most Americans were willing to, at least ones that I talked to. I mean, most Americans. Who am I to say what most Americans thought? But all the guys I talked to, and the movie came out when I was in high school, so it's been around for a long time. We all recognized the media parody, the media satire, the propaganda, that was so obvious in the movie that it really was like slapping you over the head, even as a high school student or after high school. but I did not get the fascist stuff until I thought about it more years after the fact, and then
Yeah.
thinking about it with the book, because the book was so pro-fascist, and I came in having read the book, so I kind of was watching the movie from that perspective.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Cool. Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was
Heinlein was only hinted at in the movie, like the sort of some of the more like, oh, you mean you have to enlist and be a soldier in order to have the right to vote
Right.
in this society? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
I remember they had the distinction between a citizen and a civilian.
Yep.
No, I remember
that's
they
the
had.
point.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can only be a citizen if you served in the military. That's right.
That's
and
right.
That means that you have the right to have a baby, only if you're a citizen rather than a civilian.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's
well,
right.
All right. So
Can't
why
even
is
reproduce.
it when these people, like you were talking about, the fascist notion, don't seem to recognize that as bad? You can only have a baby if you can only vote if. That's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we reversed that and took those things out of the equation, being in the military doesn't get you anything outside of what it normally gets you, and turn that into education. You can only vote if you have a doctorate. You can only have children if you have at least a bachelor's degree. If you want to be in political office and run the Department of Housing, you have to have a degree in that field. You can't just be any jerk off. You have to, if you're going to be a Department of Energy, you have to have a degree. What about things like that? Well, then all of a sudden we're the bad guy. And, I mean, you want to base it on military might and your dedication to the country via military, that's one thing. But, and they see that as not bad. But if you base it on having to have an education and a degree and so forth, and that's vilified. They vilify that.
Yeah. Well, and there's some reason to vilify that to a certain degree, because like placing an education, like making an education contingent or making voting contingent upon education was traditionally a way to like suppress minority votes and that kind of stuff, right?
That's right.
And so you have to worry about, like, if you want to have vote or reproduction be contingent upon education stuff, you got to worry about that kind of stuff. On the flip side, though, like, needing an education to be in public office, right? Like, being educated in the proper field, if you're going to hold a public office to any degree, so that you actually know what the hell you're doing, that might not be so bad, right? Like that, there may be a little bit of discrimination that happens because of that, but ultimately there probably would be a better good because you have people that are actually educated.
Not only free, Kirsten, but mandatory. Not only free, but mandatory. I'm answering somebody in the thing. Carry on.
Oh, right. But in that kind of situation, if you did that, if you had public service is like contingent upon, like, you can only hold elected office or whatever if you're properly educated or whatever, you would have to make sure that education is available to everyone and not just like through high school. Like you
absolutely,
would, like,
that's right,
all the way through your PhD. If you wanted to get your PhD, you would be able to do that on the state's dime, and that would mostly, I think, take care of that kind of discrimination.
Considering the technology we have and the ability to put courses like yours, we can minimize the resources required to train somebody up to that level. And we can do it over the internet now with no books and no papers and no pens required.
Yep.
So
we just had the
so a million people could access the same course and get the basics out of the way.
Yeah. You wonder if this moved because go ahead, Chris.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a great idea in theory, but then you bring all the awfulness of human nature into it, and you find out real fast that this isn't how this works. You have to somehow, that what we need in order for these ideas to work, and they are not bad ideas, but we need equality of opportunity for education. Yeah. And we don't have that right now. Everybody across the United States does not have an equal opportunity. And I don't mean equality of outcome. I don't even want to go in that direction. But I'm saying equality of opportunity doesn't even exist right now to get college education. And until we have that, the argument's really moot, because then until we have that, it's a matter of it's going to be the haves versus the have-nots, and the have-nots are going to lose 100% of the time. Yeah. That's just historically where that goes. It sucks because it really, you wish it wouldn't be that way, but it is.
Yeah.
And as far as the child thing goes, you know, the dark side of that is go watch the documentary One Child Nation about how China enforced their one child rule.
Yeah, right.
And you're gonna be horrified. It was the most horrifying documentary I've ever seen, and I've seen Nazi stuff, so it was bad.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
So as an alternative,
A little dark segue there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'll talk about something a little bit interesting and fun.
Yes.
4 years ago at King's College, we had a conference, and we invited Alex Guerrero to talk to us. And he has a political theory that essentially suggests it's kind of like it's a mode of government, it's a way of doing government called lotocracy. Instead of democracy, it's a lotocracy. And essentially, the basic idea is that instead of electing our officials, you are selected like a jury by lotto. People are selected at random to serve on committees. No one would like be in charge specifically, like one person selected like by random to be president or something like that. But you have, your governance is run by committees like a Congress, right? And people are selected by lotto to serve in that Congress or that governing body. And that once selected, you don't have to serve. You can refuse, right? So it's not mandatory. But if you do, it comes with a stipend and that kind of stuff. So there's some incentive to do it. And if you do, you are educated before, like whatever committee you're serving on, whatever purpose it is, you are given the necessary education, like the information you need to make the kind of right decisions and that kind of stuff. So if it's, about science or whatever, you're educated in science or whatever, and that's all provided by the state. And again, it's not perfect, right? But the argument is that it might actually be better than the kind of election process that we have now, which is so corrupted by so many different, lobbies and, lobbying interests and money and politics and that kind of stuff. And it would say this would get rid of all of that. Anyway, that's just a lotocracy. If you're interested, Google it, look it up. It's pretty interesting.
Huh. I've sort of wondered over the last couple of years whether we might be in a better place if I just opened up a phone book. Remember those phone books? If I just opened up a phone book and went, this guy will be president.
Yeah.
So,
well, based on what I've seen,
it can't be worse.
It can't.
Right?
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed.
Worse, right?
Yeah. It might not be an improvement, but I don't think it could get worse.
That's right.
True enough. Well, I mean, it's like we're living in our own dystopian. I've seen this meme that says something about this, what do they call it? The other verse.
This episode of Black Mirror sucks.
Yes, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't know, personally, I feel like we're in idiocracy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but with a death toll. With a rising death toll. At what point, I'm just curious, I didn't really want to go there, but at what point does his ineptitude or intentional denying of certain things become murder? Constitute murder? At what point?
Yeah, especially right now, it's really difficult because, like, you've got people still holding church services, right?
Like Scientology.
Like science, right? But like, in the middle of a pandemic, knowing, like we all know, most of us know, right, that this thing is highly contagious and that people can die from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Liberty University just still openly holding classes, and church, people just openly like, I'm just going to defy this. I'm just going to go to church anyway, right?
But then there's also the ones to consider that the church does close down, but they're like, well, you know what, we're going to gather in my home this Friday. So there's also a lot of that going on too. So we shouldn't.
Right. Or people just disregarding it, right? Like, I think this is a waste of time. And so I'm going to go over and, I'm going to go hang out with 50 people or whatever. Like, people are ignoring the quarantine and just kind of going out and mingling or whatever, which defeats the entire purpose of it. Right. And when you know that the consequences, the potential consequences of that, and you just choose to ignore it, right? Like, at what point does that, if I knew I had COVID and I went and secretly sneezed on all the produce at the supermarket, which somebody actually did here in Pennsylvania, they didn't have COVID, but they just went and sneezed on everything because they were upset because they couldn't buy beer, right? Like, that's pretty close to manslaughter, right? Like, I'm intentionally trying to get people sick with an illness that could potentially kill them, right? So that's not too far removed from manslaughter. And
I hadn't heard about that one.
One more step removed from that is just like, I'm just going to go out and mingle whatever, and knowing that it could spread the disease, and it's irresponsible, right? But it is getting closer to like the willful endangerment of others, right? Like it's getting closer to actual like to manslaughter.
Yeah, it's intent that's the hard thing to prove with that. You know, in terms
Mhm.
of the in answering the question about murder, right? It's hard.
Yeah,
Guy who goes around sneezing on fruit, there's no question intent is right there.
yeah,
I mean,
Guy
it's
who
very clearly demonstrated.
denies state 100,000 ventilators because the governor didn't suck up to Guy. That
I
yeah.
know.
Now that
Oh,
at that point we're right.
yeah.
There's
is that
Now we
murder
have
or no?
intent.
That
yeah.
is intent. Yes.
It seems like it, right? Like it's not as direct, but it's neither is sneezing on the fruit. The fruit's not, that's not direct either, right? Like there's a chain of causation that goes between one thing and the other.
But it is
right?
intentional.
But it is intentional.
And
It
overt,
absolutely is.
by the way.
Yeah.
But overt doesn't
That's
seem to
right.
stop. Anyway, we were supposed to be doing sci-fi, not dystopian right now. Live fi. Well, can we call it live fi?
Dystopian present.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about that all day.
Yeah.
Dystopian right now.
Well, we're not in food lines, but we are, aren't we? We are. I have to sign up with Walmart down here, and I have to register, and I can only buy 2 of certain products, and we have to wait until a certain time. I mean, it's not literal food lines, but it's food lines for the modern time compared
It's digital
yeah.
food
I mean,
lines.
it's we're I mean, of course, it is a few steps away from actual literal breadline kind of things, but of course,
It's the beginning of rationing.
Yeah.
And Americans just don't like that idea of rationing, but
or washing our hands.
Yeah. Well, but in that particular case, it might be our fault, right? There's not actually a shortage at
Right.
this point, right? It's the problem is
Nope.
people hoarding.
Correct.
When there's a shortage, it's going to be an even bigger issue, right?
That's right.
But yeah, people are hoarding, right?
Absolutely. I heard that Costco isn't going to buy back or isn't going to take back if you bought hoarded amounts of products. They're not going to. They won't buy it. Won't let you-
Certain items. Yeah,
Certain
certain
items.
things they won't take back. Paper towels, one of them. TP and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I got another question here. Since we're any other questions, if you have questions for Chris Shelton about Scientology or sci-fi related to the Scientology, or for Dr. Kyle Johnson, let me know in the chat and we'll ask him. Real quick, Science Talk TV. His name is also Chris. Wanted to know, what do you guys think of Stargate SG-1? I'm going to do this in a 2-part because he's got 2 parts. Stargate SG-1, love or hate? I love it.
Don't like.
What's that?
Don't like.
Didn't like it.
Didn't like
Okay.
the TV series.
No,
And I have not seen it, so I'm going to bow out.
Yeah, I've literally watched like 1 or 2 episodes on Comet. You know, not impressed. I loved, and I mean loved, the movie Stargate. I to this day, I it doesn't like hold up totally, but it's still fun to watch. But the series I could never get into.
I watched the series from the start, and in order. That helped. But this is one of those TV shows where the first season's a little hard to get through. And then after that, for me, it really picked up. In my opinion, the last episode of season 7, the first episode of season 8, they had a 2-parter. They were going to cancel the show, so they were going to make a movie afterwards. And in the middle of the production of the movie, they decided to go ahead and tack on season 8. So they turned that movie into the last episode of, and that's one of the best sci-fi movies I think I've ever seen, because of course you got to watch all 7 seasons to get involved with what's going on. You can't just sit down and watch it and have it be a good thing. But it was great. They kind of lost me after that. 8's okay. 9 kind of. I watched 10 because I had to. Atlantis was okay. I guess if you guys haven't seen any of those, the second part of the question may be more pertinent. What do you think about Battlestar Galactica?
Oh, I love the new one.
Okay. I enjoyed certain aspects of the new one. I think I quit after about 3 or 4 seasons. I was kind of, I don't really. This is getting a little bit complicated and weird with the religious angle and some of the other things. I just couldn't quite track with where it was going, and I just kind of thought, this just isn't my thing. And it's hard for me even now as I sit here to identify any single thing that I can point to. It's just overall, I just didn't kind of like the tone of where it was going. I am old school again, so I grew up with the original Battlestar Galactica as a kid, loved it, played it, had the toys of it. So, but it does not hold up at all. I went back and watched some of the old ones, and it's awful. And like, oh my God, this is horrible. kind of like watching the old Bionic Mans, you know, you're just like, holy cow, is this a misogynistic pile of crap, right? But because it was made in 1970, 71, 72, right? I mean, they treated women like crap. So anyway, yeah, didn't really hold up for me. But I do understand why people love it, and I don't hate on people for loving that show. I get it.
Yeah, so I would be remiss if I didn't plug my buddy Jason Eberl's book, Battlestar Galactica and Philosophy.
Let me get you up there.
I've got a chapter in here. So if you are interested in the series and like it, check out the book. It's really, really good. I've got one of the reasons that I like the series is because there was this concept of recurrence, right? This has all happened before and it'll all happen again. And there's lots of foreknowledge and people kind of know what's coming in. And my dissertation was on the freedom foreknowledge problem. The idea that humans can't be free if God knows what they're going to do before they do it, that kind of stuff. And so that's actually kind of what my chapter is about in the book. But I enjoyed that aspect of the series running through it quite a bit. And I like this commentary on religion, the polytheism versus the monotheism and that kind of stuff. And I did like the way that it ended. I thought that was pretty satisfying. So
I was worried about it whenever it started comparing the monotheism and started the way it started frowning on monotheism or what they had going on. But then whenever they went to the next episode or the next series afterwards, do you remember what it was called? Caprica.
Talk about
Caprica.
And Caprica, the terrorists who are killing all the people are the believers of one God. And most people believe in a whole bunch of gods, and the believers of one God are the terrorists, and that show didn't last a season. Didn't make it a whole
I wonder why.
And yeah, it
in
was
Christian
so,
America, I have no idea why that would be.
despite being so apt.
Yeah.
It was good. I enjoyed it though. It was a good show. Did anyone? Let's see. I'm reading here to see. Do y'all remember Earth 2? I vaguely remember seeing Earth 2. It had the guy from
bell, but I did not see it.
what was that movie? There can only be one. Highlander. Okay, so the bad guy from Highlander, who got his throat almost cut, and then he had the hooks in.
Clancy Brown.
Yes,
the actor?
yes. Thank you, Clancy Brown. He, I believe, was in this Earth 2, but it only went for a season. He was every time I see him, I'm like, hey, did you know that's the guy? Matter of fact, he was also in Cowboys and Aliens as a preacher. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff actually, but you know, I me too. Every time I see him, I'm like, the Kurgan. It's the guy who played the Kurgan.
Kurgan, that's exactly right. I mean, that was I love that movie.
Highlander's my thing, man. There can be only one. Only one movie, by the way. The rest of the Highlander franchise is shit.
Yeah.
It was only the first movie that counts. I do not talk about anything else.
Well, you know, since I got you guys,
not the series either.
Sucked.
I never saw the series. I agree about the first one was a great one. After that, I felt they created a negative pressure environment, which means it sucked. But one of the things that we talked about earlier was the Starship Troopers, and I really enjoyed the first movie. I didn't have the after that. I had a hard time. So,
oh yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. I wasn't alone. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even bother with the sequels.
Yeah, I don't talk about them in the lecture either. Like I just concentrate on that first one.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Generally speaking, straight to DVD ain't. You know that ain't your high quality stuff. So.
Well, they had T'Pol in them, didn't they? In the third one, had T'Pol in it. Actress who played T'Pol. Oh, or was it Starbuck? I think it was T'Pol. T'Pol, yeah, it was a really unfortunate movie. Yeah.
2 or 3?
3, I think.
Troopers.
Oh, he's got the power of the internet. Look at him.
Oh my God, there've been a lot of these things. There've been like 4 of them. Marauders. yeah. They had the guy from the original movie in Starship Troopers 3.
Jolene Blaylock, yeah.
Casper Van Dien.
That's guy from the first
Johnny
movie.
Rico. Yeah, Jolene Blaylock and Boris Kodjoe. Yeah. Yep. Starship Troopers 3. Not my thing.
Is Verhoeven directing those, or is that somebody else?
Somebody else.
Brainbug says
I think they lose their satirical bent after the first one, right? Like they are just shoot 'em up movies after that.
Just regular movie,
that's right.
Yeah.
Brainbug says Starship Troopers sequels are like watching someone's fan fiction, and I would have to agree with that. I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
It wasn't nowhere near.
I'll bet you that's
level.
true. I bet you that's true.
And of course the social commentary, but then again, it was more about just let's kill these bugs and win the war and blah 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 for the movies.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And then you know what? You're about the same age I am. I think I'm a tiny bit younger than you. I have to say I envy your hair color. Um, but what
I
about
envy your
Blade
hair.
Runner? What's that?
So I envy his hair. Yes,
I'm sorry.
And I'm like every morning I'm like, this bald spot back here. I hate myself. I hate my life.
Just
But
don't look at it.
yeah,
That's
I
what I
get it,
do.
man. I get it.
Blade
Did
Runner.
you just mention the sacred words Blade Runner?
I did. I did.
Oh,
The One de
okay. Now
Blados.
we're kneeling at the altar of Ridley Scott.
Ah,
Oh yes, Blade Runner is one of the best. It is
yeah.
definitely one of the best, most influential. Sid Mead just died. He was I think he was the production designer or the visual designer of that whole concept. And Blade Runner was just a step above anything else that
I
from
love
that
that.
time.
You know, the
Yeah,
actor who played, I can't remember his name. One of the robot that shot the guy under
Rucker
the.
Hauer.
No.
Oh, that yeah. I
Yeah,
know who
he
you're
also
talking about.
played in Enemy Mine.
Yeah,
BTA man, he gets shot in the neck. I mean, that guy's around. He died of a heart attack.
he did.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know he
yeah.
died. I didn't know he wasn't around anymore.
No longer with Rutger Hauer's gone. He's gone.
Yep.
But you know, I did Junk Shop. Junk Shop Library wants to know if I waited 50 minutes into the show to mention Blade Runner. I was just you keep people to the end of the show by saving the best for last.
Right.
So
Brian James was his name. He died in '99.
yeah, he's been dead a
I had
while then,
no
huh?
idea he was dead. I
Yeah.
did not know that. Yeah.
He's. I mean, that guy was in a lot of stuff too. He'd been around.
Did
Yeah.
you guys enjoy the recent sequel, the 2049?
I did.
Wasn't that right?
You and I talked about it the other day. Now I want to go
Yeah,
watch
that's
it
right.
again.
I should probably see it again.
Yeah.
I was not impressed, but I am sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I need to see things 2 or 3 times to get it. And that was a deep, big movie. So I should give it more before I go ragging on it.
Yeah, it's well, I really liked it. I didn't.
Yeah,
I
hey,
didn't.
fair enough.
I didn't think about some of the philosophical points until Kyle and I talked about it last time. I liked it for. Sometimes I watch sci-fi movies and I can just watch that movie over and over again. Other times there's movies I can't stand. Like the Live Die Repeat. There for a while I'd watch that sucker once a week. I love that one. This one here, I really enjoy this movie. The 2049. I need to go watch it again. I've seen it twice now. Hey Kyle,
What
I
did
saw
I say about it?
you were talking. You
What did I
just
say about it?
I
Yeah,
said
what did he say about it?
well, what I we were talking about the philosophical points being made in the original Blade Runner, and I
Okay.
made the comment that there wasn't as much philosophy or deep philosophy,
Right.
deep thinking in the second movie. And he's like, "Well, really, there is because there's this android trying to determine is he real? Is he the one? Is he real? Is he not real? Is he the child? Is he not the child? And then does his program love him? Does it not love him? Is it program love? There's lots of things, a lot more than that too, going on there. So it's a good flick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was piling on the questions a bit more obviously than Blade Runner did. Blade Runner was sort of all of that was it was more like life. It was there, all that stuff was there, but you had to go grab it to talk about it. You know, like the was Deckard an android?
Right.
Right.
Was he human? What did that mean? You know, what about the role of memory in our identity and personality and how we identify who we are to ourselves? That, you know, those were questions that were right there on the screen, but nobody was hitting you over the head with them. In
Mhm.
the book, they were hitting you over the head with it. Philip K. Dick in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep was pounding you with that theme throughout the book. It was much more obvious. It was only hinted at in the movie, and for me, I kind of like that. I don't like getting hit over the head with stuff when I'm watching movies. I think it's too obvious. It makes it, you know, it's too like, let me think about this for a little bit. The less you give me, the more interpretation I get to, the more contribution I get to make to the thing. That's my thing on movies, though. I know that's not everybody.
Well, let me ask, since I got both of you here, Deckard,
Mhm.
android or not android, replicant or not replicant. They very left it very ambiguous
They
intentionally.
did.
And then there are things like in the second movie they talk about. They noticed the female, the bones of the female android had had a child. She died in childbirth, and then they start talking about, so Tyson, I think, was able to make replicants that could have. They didn't seem. Some of them. Am I wrong about that, Kyle?
Mm-mm.
It seemed
I
like
don't
some
think
of them.
so.
There's this notion that one of them didn't want people to know that replicants and people could reproduce together. But I don't think that's right. I think they were thinking that two replicants had, and if they think two
Right.
replicants, then that would mean Deckard was a replicant.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think I think I've only seen 2049 once, but I remember thinking that while watching it, the fact that she had had a child, it seemed to be evidence at least that he was a replicant,
Right. Well,
because
see,
it wasn't a replicant in a person; it was a replicant and a replicant having a child. That was the kind of big deal.
here's what it
Um,
seems to me, and you might if you watch it again see what you think. The blonde lady was trying to stop it and bury it because she was afraid that it was human and replicant had a child. And then the brunette replicant lady who was working for the guy with the weird eyes, the blind guy, but he, you know what I mean?
Jared
Um,
Leto's character.
she was worried. She was trying to get to where replicants can breed so they can take over and kill humans. So it seemed like there was two different concerns of both natures. I could be wrong
yeah,
though. I could have swore that
yeah. No,
blonde
I
lady
think
was afraid that humans and replicants were going to breed. If they knew that they could breed together, problems would happen or something was a concern. I could be wrong.
yeah. I think that's a legitimate interpretation, and that they're still trying to be ambiguous about whether or not he is a replicant or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but in my opinion, so I think that 2049 is more philosophically deep and dense than people give it credit for. And then sometimes I actually kind of think the original is gets too much credit for being philosophical. Not that it's not at all, but that it a little bit maybe too much credit for being philosophically dense because the question it raises is essentially whether or not replicants have souls. Um, but since replicants aren't androids, they're not artificial beings in the sense of being made of metal and like they're not commander data, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
biological beings that are simply constructed rather than born, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
And
the issue
enhanced.
is right and enhanced, right? But they're still biological beings.
Yes.
And in philosophy and science, the jury's pretty much out on this, right? Like people don't have souls. Your brain produces your mentality, right? And so, regardless of whether you're born or you're made, if you have a brain, you've got a mind, right? And so, this kind of question of, oh, do replicants really have feelings, and do they, are they conscious, and are they sentient, and are they sapient, and blah blah blah? Of course they are. They have brains, right? And so, I like the question isn't as deep, I think, as some people at least initially thought. Now, when Philip K. Dick originally wrote the novel, I think that would have been a deeper point, right?
Yeah.
The jury might have been kind of still out on that or whatever. But for a modern, like philosophical and scientific point of view, I don't think the question is that hard. Of course, replicants are sentient and sapient.
Yes. Absolutely. And at that time, it was not as clear, especially in common, at the layman's level of understanding of neuroscience and all that. We weren't there at all at that point. So I think people generally had broader questions about it, from that philosophical bent. And Ridley Scott's not known for deep philosophical movies. He plays and toys with philosophical ideas, but he's really not a deep thinker as a filmmaker. He's throwing stuff out there. So so I think you're right. I think there's a lot of interpretation going on there on the part of the viewer. There's a lot more participation that's required in order to bring those themes out. Even Ridley Scott's soliloquy, or sorry, Rutger Hauer's little soliloquy at the end when he dies, he made that up on the set right there. That wasn't in the script. He wrote that. Harrison Ford complained about the fact that, he wasn't getting a lot of personal direction on what to do with his character from the director. The director was, Ridley Scott's the big picture guy. He has concepts of a very visual director. And you see that consistently through his movies. And so that's where he lives. So all the philosophical stuff you're absolutely right. It's from us putting that on there. And I think maybe for me, 2049 suffered a little bit because that rich base wasn't really there. So then 2049 tries to build on all the stuff we contributed to Blade Runner to make
I see.
it.
Yeah.
You see, and that's why I think it kind of shot here and there and was a little hit and miss for me, because it wasn't really built on a solid base, you know. And for me as a storyteller, that's how I think about movies and stories, you know.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I like that.
That was well, there was just always for me one of the most as a young person, that was very influential for me. And granted, I see where you're going. Ridley Scott did not come up with that. Had he not been working off the work of Philip K. Dick, it wouldn't have been what it was. If he just sat down himself and penned it, you know, it would not have been. It would have been more crayon, less pen.
But, yeah, because you get because what you see more recently from Ridley Scott is more of him trying to do deep dives, and they fail. I mean, these alien movies, these sequels he did, Prometheus and stuff, those were just they were awful. They were just like complete madhouses of storytelling. I hated those movies, and I wanted to love them so much, and they were so well made. The production values were out the roof.
Absolutely.
But
and yet,
Jesus, those stories were just, I was just, you know,
yeah, let's just throw any and all reasonable science out the window, right? I mean, I don't know about the ships, but like the diseases, the virus. I mean, there's so much wrong with this. The which one was it where they get there and they get to this planet and they just go walking around with no breathing, nothing.
Right. That's exactly what I'm talking
and
about.
Then,
like, this is planetary exploration. What?
Yeah. And then,
you know,
they get out there and this thing gets in their nose. And like minutes later, it's arm sized. And minutes later, it's, yeah.
Exactly.
They really lost me on
and
that
for
one.
all we know, there very well could be species like that out there that would do that to us. You're on a different planet. You got no idea what's about to go down. And you're just going to go wandering around out there? Like, what is this? Star Trek original season? Come on, guys. Let's, let's like apply a little bit more science here, you know?
Yeah, that was pretty rough. And then just those kind of things alone made it hard. Art makes it hard to watch. I enjoy Charlize Theron. Always enjoy her. She's a lot of fun, but I tell you, what they did with those movies was horrible. I was hoping for so much because of Alien and Alien 2. We're not going to talk about Alien
3. No, please don't. Please don't.
And I've heard this nasty rumor going around that they may even start over again at 3.
I've heard the same thing, and honestly, my reaction to that was, well, if you have to do another Alien movie, please do that. Let's just cancel David Fincher and everything beyond on that one. Didn't happen. You know? Yeah, let's just pretend it didn't happen, because right out of the gates on Alien 3, I was sitting in the theater, and I was so close to just walking out within the first 5 minutes of them killing Newt, killing oh God, what was the other soldier's name? Michael Biehn character. I just was like, "What? Are you kidding me with this?" So yeah, I didn't like that.
Which movie, if you can? I know we're kind of running out of time. If you guys need to go, let me know and we'll shut her down. But I want to ask, which movie did you see the most in the theater? Have you gone to the theater the most to see?
You want to answer this one first, David?
Probably Star Wars.
Really? Star Wars?
Yeah. Like whenever they were released in the 90s, I went and saw each one of them twice. I've seen all the prequels at least twice. I've seen all the new ones at least twice in the theater. Yeah.
Okay, well, mine is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I saw that movie 18 times in the movie theater.
Wow.
18 separate events.
You bought Harrison Ford a car.
Mostly as a teenager.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly as a teenager. I loved that movie.
You did?
I loved it. I mean...
That's a good one. That is a good one,
yeah. Okay.
I obsessed on that one.
I've got mine. My numbers are nowhere near yours, though. I was impressed with myself until I heard yours. But you know, I watched the original Star Trek. I'm old enough to know the original Star Trek. I saw the original Star Trek: The Next Generation. I saw the movies. I remember The Wrath of Khan, one of the best Star Trek movies. Loved it. The new movie came out 2009. I really enjoyed that. Different take on Star Trek because that's the new
Yep.
Kelvin timeline. Get it totally.
Right.
Go on to the second movie, essentially The Wrath of Khan.
Yep.
And when I mean, I just freaking loved that movie. When it turns out Spock is the one at the end going, Khan, and Kirk is dead and all that stuff, I'm bawling like
Yeah.
a baby. I went to the theater 4 times, not one or two or three, but 4 times to see. One
Oh
time,
wow, I saw that. Yeah.
one time it was so
Wow.
packed, I was right down on the very front row, all the way over to the side. I could barely see the screen, but I was there, buddy. Popcorn. I
Wow.
loved it.
Wow.
That's awesome. I don't like the new ones as much, or the Abrams stuff as much, because it's not as
Yeah.
philosophical
Right.
as the original
Yep.
Trek. That's one of the reasons that I'm not. And I do like the new Picard pretty well. I think there's a little bit more philosophy going on there, and even with Discovery, there's more philosophy going on there. But I do enjoy them. Like in 2009, I taught a course specifically on Star Trek, and our final was to go watch that movie in the 2009 movie in the theater. Not having no idea what it was going to be like, right? The alternate timeline or anything. But to go watch it, and they wrote a paper on it. That was their final for the Star Trek and philosophy class.
That'd be a fun
But
class.
I enjoy them. But they are more. I think they're more this kind of movie, not this
yeah.
kind of movie.
No
right?
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
That's perfectly fine. That's that's fine. That's awesome.
One of my things is Star Trek is our future, and it's cool, and it's philosophy about how I would like to see us go. Star Wars is run and gun, you know, fun.
Well,
fun,
Star
run and
Wars is a long time ago too.
And it's also a long. Yeah. It's
gun.
not
Yeah,
about our
yeah,
future.
but,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
in the
not our
past.
history at all. It's not even. It's not supposed to be our history
Well,
at
if you're
all.
a Scientologist, it's our history.
Well,
I'll tell you that.
yeah. But
Yes,
so
it
the
is.
the new movies.
Scientologists love Star Wars
I-
for that reason.
I bet.
They get off on the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away part. They really do.
Really? Yeah. I guess
Oh,
that makes
yeah.
sense. It's,
I
I've heard-
totally interrupted you, Chris, but
No.
yeah, I just had this.
That's all right. I've heard people say that. All right, anyway, real quick though, that's
Yeah.
the difference. Is that's not us and this is us. But the new movies are sort of like run and gun. They're Star Wars-esque Star Trek movies. That's kind of how I kind of see them because
Yeah,
they're more
yeah.
run and gun adventure.
yeah,
Now,
they totally are. Yep.
a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. All right, let's go real quick. There are some theories that the humans in Star Wars came from here. They left Earth in the future, went out there, fell into a black hole, got transported to where? A long, long time ago in a galaxy where? Far, far away.
Far away.
And they colonized Coruscant. And that's how the humans became in Star Wars. That's a theory. It's never been
Interesting.
canonized, but it's something that's floating around.
Oh, thank God
Yeah,
it's not
sure.
been canonized. But yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I can see people interpret that. I could also see him Battlestar Galactica-ing it,
Yeah.
right? Where we are the descendants of the people from the Star Wars universe, right? Like
Right.
that
Yeah.
might be a more Scientology kind of view of it or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
One of the things in
Yeah.
that case,
I mean, yeah, the Scientology view is that we've been running around in this universe for literally, it's not a joke. I mean, it is a joke. It's a complete joke, but trillions of years. Trillions.
oh yeah, like even
Trillion.
older than the universe. itself, right?
Quadrillions of years. Like the universe is 4 quadrillion years old.
Jeez.
That's how long we've been banging around in it, right? That's Scientology's view. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So when they say a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Scientologists go, yeah, crazy.
well, there's also the
So,
notion
yeah.
that our galaxy moves through space. And therefore, a long time ago, our galaxy was technically far, far away.
Oh,
So
That's
there's,
true.
I've seen these. Of course, I'm not a Star Wars guy. I'm a Star Trek guy. I'm just kind of like hearing things through the wall.
right.
But that's kind
I
of,
can see that. I mean, people want to interpret it that way. That's no.
well, you
harm.
always
Right.
wonder how you get so many humans in Star Wars. You know, now I guess that's how they get it. You know, it makes sense to me. I'd like to see that. That would be cool thing.
Yeah.
I've heard some things about the upcoming Picard that kind of tie Romulans in with Borgs of some nature. I kind of don't want to go there because I don't want to spoil anything for me or anybody else. But that's going to
Have
be.
you finished Picard yet? Have you
I
watched
haven't even
Picard yet?
started it yet. Oh, well, we were
Okay.
talking about
No, I
Orville,
haven't.
right? My wife now has agreed, I believe. We have watched the Star Trek Next Generations, the Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then we moved on to Enterprise. We got one season into Enterprise and stopped because of you and went and watched the Orville.
Okay.
The Orville is more Star Trek than Enterprise. It's. I mean, if you're,
you know
if
what,
you're,
I need to
yeah.
go ahead.
No. I mean,
I need to
if you're a Star Trek: The Next Generation fan, and that's your base, and you're craving some of that, and you can either watch Enterprise or Orville. You should watch Orville because you're gonna get.
I can see that. I can see that. I need to send you this first chapter of my book so we can talk about it next week.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
on this issue, and then when the book comes out, we'll talk about the whole book again. But I think that this chapter I'm going to send you will foster some really good discussion. I personally really like Enterprise. I like it better than Voyager and DS9.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I love Enterprise for multiple reasons. But I can see the argument that you're making, like, and it makes sense to me that they're definitely, especially if you're a really big TNG fan, which I am a big TNG fan.
You are.
And
He was admiring your stuff when you
different.
stepped away. Chris was looking at the stuff you had in the background.
You got some cool stuff back there, man.
Hey, thanks. What do you like? Tell me.
Well, I'm
like,
digging that ship for one. I mean, you got the Enterprise, pretty big ass Enterprise there.
I can see
Yeah.
Data.
Yeah.
Let me make him big. I'm gonna make him big on the screen here. I know how to do
Okay.
this.
Here, I'll show off here. Let me.
Oh yeah. Okay. Because I see Data, and it looks like Geordi.
Yeah, so it's Locutus and Geordi, Data, and then Kirk from the movies.
Okay.
Okay. And then a D. I have the B, the Enterprise B over here, like off screen. So other sci-fi stuff. I've got a whole collection of Star Wars stuff up top here. Just some action figures, the movies, and that kind of stuff. If you go up a little higher, I've got this is actually the, if I can get it, this is the X-Wing that I got for my 7th birthday.
Wow.
Oh wow.
And it still
Yeah.
pops.
I remember those. I had one of those.
Well, you know,
So
I often tell these stories.
It's from Jedi.
Yeah,
I was 7 when Jedi came out.
I often tell these stories about how I was so poor I didn't have toys like that. But I didn't actually have toys like that. I had a friend who had one of those. I didn't actually have.
And this is, let me take my earphones out really quick here. So this is same year, Return of Jedi or whatever, but this is the lightsaber hilt from the toy lightsaber I had.
There we go.
From back in the day.
Looks like a Darth Vader-esque one.
Have you seen the new lightsabers that are out and about now? It's a whole industry.
Oh yeah. They're amazing. Like they light up and everything like that. It's just
I got one. Yeah, they're awesome.
Absolutely incredible.
Have we all seen
spar with them?
Have we all seen
this right here?
Oh, go ahead.
This right here is original vinyl from 1977 of the soundtrack.
Oh damn! You still have yours.
Yes, I have that, and I also have. Where is it? I have the Empire Strikes Back one too, somewhere else, but it's not on display here.
Wow, original vinyl. Yeah. Damn.
And let's see, what else can I show you?
Remember, I used to sit and just listen to that album on my dad's record player. Oh my god.
And you have more. He has. This is his home office. He has another office at King's College that has a lot more stuff.
Yeah, even way more. Yeah, like this is my overflow here at home.
Nice, man. Super nice.
Thanks.
I just got my Legos. Ahead. That's all I got going on back here.
The TARDIS here was part. There's a TARDIS there, and then if you look, there's a plush Millennium Falcon right there. You can see it very well. And then I also have. Let me show you this. I have a plush little Enterprise. Right? And what these are from, this actually has, so it actually hung something else. Sorry, I keep losing my, so what this is from is when my son was born, let me get this out. When my son was born, I made him a mobile. I had made for him a mobile, so I put it together. I hired people on Etsy to make little plush Star Trek characters that went with the plush Enterprise. And then I have some plush Doctor Who stuff, and they went with the TARDIS. And then I had a plush Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie that went. And I actually made like a hanging mobile for him that I put a spinner on, and it all spun 24/7 in his room. And it was 3-tiered, and it was huge, and it was awesome. And he's 7 now, so I took it down and took it apart, and so now the stuff's on my shelf. But that's what those are from.
Sandy the Sane says you have a PhD in epicness.
Oh, thank you.
Kristen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no
gotta
doubt.
up my nerd game here. This is really bad.
Yeah.
I got some great stuff back here, but I don't have plushies. That's definitely
That's yeah,
you
no.
nailing it on that
Well,
one.
let's see if I can. I don't know if I can tip my camera down far enough, but you can actually see the whole collection of Star Trek plushies down there.
Look at
Awesome, man.
that.
I kind of messed them up whenever I pulled the stuff out of it.
Kristen,
Awesome.
And then I've got.
Kristen wants to know if the Star Wars stuff is Kenner Star Wars stuff.
Some of it is
That
because
X-wing.
it's original.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find something here.
She happens to have a Millennium Falcon, an X-wing fighter, a TIE fighter interceptor, advanced AT&T, ATT, and ATST. This is Kristen from the chat. She's also got. She's not mentioning it here.
All
So
of the stuff I have up here.
you couldn't hear
All
me.
the stuff that's up here is. Sorry, I had the earphones out, so I couldn't hear you. All the stuff I have that's right here above my head. That's all since the prequels. Like that's all fairly new stuff.
Okay, new stuff.
I've got some stuff at the office that is original Kenner. Like I have a Jabba the Hutt from 1983 and a Gamorrean Guard from 1983 and some other older ones that I have that are original. I think I even have some in a box I'm in my attic right now, and there's a box of stuff over there that I've got where I've got some original stuff and some stuff still in the package for the prequel stuff. Not any original stuff still in the package, but
nice.
some other stuff like that.
Well, Kirsten has. I've seen some of her collection. She has the head from Predator, the mask, and all that from Predator.
Oh,
and
nice.
she's got
That's
quite a
awesome.
few. Yeah, she's got a lot of. She's a real powerful nerd. Epileptic Skeptic is asking if this is Star Wars and Star Trek. Well, we started out with Star Wars and Star Trek, but it is Sci-Fi Saturday, so it's mostly going to be about that. We've
covered some other stuff.
Yeah, we bounced around. She showed up a little late. She missed the Blade Runner stuff, I think, and
yeah, we talked about Blade Runner and Starship Troopers and Alien and
remember Space 1999?
I didn't see it, but I remember it.
No.
Talk about a show that didn't hold up. Oh man, you go back and check those out. They are cringy, but I loved the strips because they built on. They were kind of more real, sort of ish. And anyway, that was kind of a fun show, just as far as stretching the envelope a little bit.
There you go. Do you guys remember Space Above and Beyond? That one season.
No, but I didn't see it.
I don't remember that.
It was a good show. They had these. They were nipple necks. They called them people who were grown in tanks. They would grow people in tanks, or had grown them in tanks to use as military for the military.
Like replicants,
huh?
Like replicants.
Yeah. So but they no longer did that. So those people, I don't know. It was a really good show. And then humans got attacked by aliens. Our first contact turned out to be a hostile alien race, and it's really good. It was too short, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe a good. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna throw out before we're gonna have to do a Marvel Monday or something.
Love it. All right, I'll write that down.
Like
but maybe that'll have to be an afternoon show.
Yeah, I'm down, man.
Or you won't be able to make it for the morning
show. Yes, please. Yes, please. Afternoon.
Marvel
but I'm down,
Monday.
man, because I got my Hulkbuster and my Batmobile and
nice
all that Batwing over there. Yeah. I'm down with the Marvel and the DC, at least certain DC.
My wife
I would enjoy watching that. I'm not as big of a Marvel fan, so I don't know how useful I would be, but gotcha. I would enjoy watching that.
Well, Batman and my wife's real big into Wonder Woman because like us when she was young, that was her thing.
Yep, my wife too.
And now she's a nurse. And we actually have a YouTube channel called Wonder Woman, where we haven't put anything here yet. She's planning on putting stuff later. And I have wonderwoman.com, the domain. So we're planning on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
V. Somebody mentioned V in the comments.
Oh,
that's worthy of comments. Yeah.
Yes.
The original series back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell yeah. We loved that show.
I could watch that one. I haven't seen it in so long, but I'd love to watch it.
It was good for the first season.
Yeah.
I mentioned it briefly in the Sci-Fi course when I'm talking about if aliens ever really visited, what would happen in language barriers and that kind of stuff. The main movie I use that for that is Arrival. But I wanted to mention, Chris, if you're a Batman fan,
what is this?
Batman and Philosophy.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And
we're down. Yeah.
My article in this is one of my most popular ever. I have all my stuff posted on academia.edu, and it is frequently the most downloaded article. It's one I wrote with a friend of mine from grad school named Indy Rhodes, who's named Indy, by the way, after Indiana Jones. And we argue that so there's an ethical theory called virtue theory, which suggests that one of the ways that you tell how you can determine what's right from wrong is by looking at moral exemplars. You look at people who are morally upstanding and you try to emulate their behavior. And normally in virtue theory, you're thinking like the Dalai Lama or like somebody who's like a real person or whatever. But in our chapter, we argue that it can be fictional characters like Batman.
Of course, that's why we have icons and idols.
Right. And so that's essentially that. Like, can Batman be a moral exemplar is the kind of the topic of the chapter, and we argue that it can. But for some reason, that's a really popular thing I've written for the series.
I can see why.
I have a quick question.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you have more questions. Go for it.
Well, just one from the chat real quick. Have you seen Invisible Man, and what are your thoughts on it? I have not seen the new Invisible Man.
I haven't. I want to watch it. I want to rent it because now you can rent it. It came out of the theater because of
so no spoilers. No spoilers. La la. Okay.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I have not seen it yet.
What were you gonna say, Kyle?
So there is an Invisible Man in it. Is that a spoiler?
I haven't seen it. Ha!
No, I just had a question. Whenever you're ready to finish up, I think I have a good question to finish up on.
Okay, cool. Well, let me throw out on the Invisible Man that I did see it.
Oh.
In the theater last week or 2 weeks ago before the whole thing came down, and it's not bad. It's mostly a movie about gaslighting. It's mostly what the movie's actually themed on.
That's what my friend Mike, he's seen it, and he said it's kind of like that, which is a really interesting.
And that's not a spoiler. It's it's there in the commercials already, but it's a good movie from that perspective. It's well written from that perspective. Otherwise, it's okay. It's not a bad movie. Cool. It's worth seeing, even if Elizabeth Moss is a Scientologist. Basically the biggest hypocrite on the planet for making a movie about gaslighting while she's an active member of the Church of Scientology.
So wait a minute, Elizabeth Moss, who's the star of Handmaid's Tale?
Handmaid's Tale. Yes.
Really? Is a Scientologist?
Yes.
There's some irony dripping.
It's not irony. It is straight up hypocrisy. It is disgusting. And I only get to say stuff like that because I actually know what I'm talking about, but I get that people are not going to necessarily track with what I'm saying if you don't have everything in that I know about this stuff. So I'll just leave it at that. We don't have to do that deep dive right now, but she is definitely a hypocrite. Yeah.
You can cut that irony with a knife.
Surprise.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
And so go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, so you ready for my question?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do your question. If you're ready.
All right, so this is one of those self-serving questions because I have an answer I want to give. But I'll let you know.
Okay.
What sci-fi is coming out that is not out yet that you are most looking forward to?
That's an easy one for me. Do you want me? Can I go first while Chris thinks?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. For me, to be honest, it's Picard. Picard and Discovery. I've got to finish Enterprise first, which Enterprise is my least favorite Star Trek. No offense, Dr. Kyle. It's really hard for me to get through. So like we got some time. Do we want to go watch Enterprise? I don't know, but man, we got to get through it. Anyway, but we got to get through that.
Finish it out. I'm telling you, finish it out. It gets better and better.
Oh, I've seen it before.
Finish it out.
I've been down the road.
Okay.
I know how it ends.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. But I got to get through it in order to see Discovery and Picard. So those are the ones I'm really looking forward to. I got to get through Enterprise so I can.
Okay. All right. Chris?
Don't really have an answer. I'm actually looking right now at an article on upcoming sci-fi stuff, and most of them are not impressing me.
Gotcha.
I am interested in what they're going to do with Dune, because Dune was destroyed by David Lynch in the 80s and was probably one of the worst movies ever made. They did a Sci-Fi channel series that was a little better, I think in 2000 or something. They did a miniseries.
Yep.
I would really like to see somebody do Dune right.
Yeah.
In all its complexity and somehow update it and bring it in and make it the tale it's supposed to be, even if they could outdo Frank Herbert even on the framework he created. That is possible, because there are problems with the movie, with the story, but that's something I would like to see. Apparently Mark Wahlberg is also going to be in an upcoming $6 billion man.
Really?
But I ain't got no high hopes for a Mark Wahlberg vehicle. So
No.
you know, he can do good work with good direction, kind of like Tom Cruise can. But when he's left to his own devices, he gets a little silly.
So Dune, I think, is like Blade Runner in that respect, where I think it gets the movies, at least the movies and the miniseries, get more kind of philosophical respect, I think, than they deserve. I watched the movie and the entire miniseries when I was working on the sci-fi course. Excuse me. And trying to pull something out of there, trying to get something, and I couldn't do it. I could not find anything that was like, there's a little bit of political commentary and that kind of stuff in there. And I feel like if somebody did the novel justice, there would be more. Do you think that's right, Chris? If they did the novel justice, there would be more? So I'd agree with that. That sounds like something really good.
I do. Yeah, I think that.
Somebody
We're both Chris.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting. Is he talking to me? I don't read. I can read, but I don't know.
You don't read? What?
No. Daniel Peterson wanted to mention Dead Space has a cult inspired by Scientology. Do you know that? Are you familiar with Dead Space at all, Chris?
I've heard of it. People have thrown it at me, and I know that there's a Scientology thing in there.
I didn't know that there was didn't know there was any kind of relation. But I'll have to check it out. Obviously, I'm not as familiar with Scientology. I remember thinking at one point, I wish religion would agree with science more. And then I was going down the road and I saw this building and it said Scientology on the side of it. This is in Woodward, Oklahoma. I was a kid. And I thought, maybe this is it. And then I found out and I was like, no, that ain't it.
Hold on. Hold the presses.
Hold the presses, hell.
Woodward, Oklahoma, when you were a kid, where did you grow up, Chris?
Woodward, Oklahoma.
I grew up in Guyman, Oklahoma.
Really? Yeah. Well, we spent 4 years. Most of my life I was in Odessa, Texas, Odessa, Midland. But 4 years I spent in Woodward, Oklahoma. Guyman, not very far.
At what ages? At what ages and what years?
Probably about. Oh wait, I can tell you. Let's see, 12 to 16.
Okay, what years would that have been?
Man, I don't know. It's complex
what
math.
What decade?
We're talking 84, 86. Okay. Yeah, like that. 82.
See, I'm from Guyman in the Panhandle. We would always drive through Woodward on our way to the city for speech and debate tournaments, Bible quizzing tournaments, blah 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 blah. So like the Brahms in Woodward I've been to numerous times, and the Loves on the outside of town and stuff was an always constant stop and stuff like that. So we're kind of from the same.
I think my dad went up to Guyman to have surgery one time. Yeah, so this is a small world though, considering.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And Chris is in Chicago, or not Chicago, Denver. He's not too
Colorado.
far away from.
Yeah, I'm in Denver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not. You're like 4 hours from where my parents live. My parents live in Boise City now. Little bitty, kind of one horse town. There's not a stoplight in the entire county, Cimarron County there. But that's where they live. So I'm always pretty close to Denver when I go back home there. Gotcha. So all right. So my answer. You guys ready for my answer?
I'm ready.
Yeah, bring it.
Hook us up.
And I have not done any research on it. I just saw the commercial like once or twice and I flipped out.
Okay.
This is another one that I talk about in my sci-fi course. And the director of this movie just won the Oscar for Best Picture. Which was, what's his name? God dang it, I forgot his name. The Korean director, South Korean director.
Oh yeah, for Parasite. I don't remember his name. Yeah.
But before he was known for Parasite, he directed a little movie called Snowpiercer.
Yes. Yeah. Loved that movie.
There apparently is there's a series. There's a new series.
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, Bong Joon-ho. There we go.
Yeah.
There is a Snowpiercer series that is coming out.
Really?
Yes.
How are they gonna series that? Go prequel? Go back?
No, I think it's a retelling of the story. It's like a reboot. It's as a limited series. Okay. Yes, I think so.
Have you guys seen the
series?
There's a deal on YouTube talking about how Snowpiercer is actually part 2 or a continuation of Charlie Chaplin and not Charlie Chaplin, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original. Yeah, go watch it on YouTube.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
As social commentary.
Are they in the same universe?
It's alleging literally that the guy who's running the train is Charlie. Remember the reason why they need little kids up in the front of the train is because they used to have Oompa Loompas and they're all dead now. So now they use little kids to do that job. No, it's a really good. Go watch if you're familiar with those. Go watch that thing on YouTube. I don't know. You know the names of the two movies. Just put them in there, and it will blow your
Yeah,
mind. The director did that very
yeah.
much on purpose. There's no way it wasn't on purpose.
There's a lot of similarities
Yeah.
between the stories about, like, you're kind of coming to replace the person who is in charge, and there there's these kind of these trials as you go and stuff. Like there's some similarities there. But
a lot of social commentary there.
Oh yeah,
Morality.
lots of social commentary.
They're both morality plays. Absolutely.
Yeah. With the notion that it was actually. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I said when I saw the trailer, I was like, "What? There's going to be some. I can't wait to see it. Maybe it'll, maybe it won't be any good or whatever. But I'm really looking forward to watching the Snowpiercer series."
Really?
Wow.
I didn't know they was going to make a series. I did enjoy the movie. I was surprised.
There it is. There it is. Set more than 7 years after the world has become a frozen wasteland, this series centers on the remaining people who inhabit a gigantic, perpetually moving train that circles the globe.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sequel. I think it's just like a reboot.
Oh, Jennifer Connelly's in it.
It's
like it's like a redo of it. Yeah,
like a reimagining, like the Dune miniseries is a redo of the Dune movie or whatever, right?
Yep.
Hey,
well, interesting. It's gonna be on TNT.
It is. Hey, Kyle, I just saw that you were on Andy's show, Laughing in Disbelief. He dropped a video just a few minutes ago. Your video with him.
Oh, good. Yeah. I just talked about procrastination is bondage. That was my piece of advice.
Really? All right, I just want to find that Snowpiercer. You said Snowpiercers.
Snowpiercer, yeah.
Piercer, and then Willy Wonka. If you just type that into YouTube, you will see.
I'll check that out. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, and it's like a 15-minute video telling you there's two actually, but I don't remember which one I saw, but one of them is really good. And if you go watch it, you'll be like, absolutely, the director. Cool. No, there's no doubt that was what.
Well, I've always loved that movie. I've gotten some crap for that actually, because some people are like, movie sucks, horrible. I'm like, come on, man, it's just some really good social commentary.
Oh, it's great social commentary, and the action's great too.
Exactly.
I love it when the train bends around the curve and they're shooting at each other.
Yes.
Like, so good.
Yes.
So good. In the sci-fi course, I actually argued that it is what I call a lukewarmers movie. So in other words, I don't think that Bong Joon-ho intended this or whatever, but that it's got a lot of ideas that people who are lukewarmers about climate change, who think that climate change is not that big of a deal, would actually like in a lot of ways. But I'll leave that for the course or whatever. But that's the kind of what I use it for in the sci-fi course. But God, it's such a fun movie. It's so good.
Yeah, I loved it.
Well, you know what, guys? It's been an hour and a half. I really appreciate you. Unless you got something else you want to say.
I'm good. I do need to go.
I'm good, man.
You guys are wonderful. So I'd like to next week. Kyle is going to be on the show as
Yep, I'll send you that article.
Special guest. And here's how it works. Chris, I'm just throwing this out there. I know it's still early for you. Once you've been on my show once, you're welcome to come back and co-host. So
awesome, man.
Yeah, so if you decide you want to come back and co-host with me on the Sci-Fi Saturday, come back and we'll do it again, and you get to be on the top, and Kyle gets to be on this.
Cool. Well, Kyle, I want to talk to you about that Batman philosophy. You should email me. Maybe we should do an episode about that. I'm kind of curious about your paper on that.
Yeah, and actually, I'm a former evangelical that came out of evangelicalism, so we have a little bit in common that way. I don't think my story will be as dramatic as yours, but I have shared that story in other places. I can send you a short version of it if you want to. We could talk about that as well. But then we could also talk about Batman or whatever the hell else you want to talk about.
Yeah, Batman is big in my house. I mean, my wife and I are big Batman fans.
What are your thoughts about the new Batman?
All the versions of all the movies. We're building the 1989 Lego Batmobile right now.
Cool.
It's big. I mean, it's big. We're Batman. Yeah. So when you cited that paper, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be reading that.
Okay, cool. So all right, awesome. Marvel Monday one of these days. We'll have to hook that up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can go for a while on Marvel on the movies and stuff for sure.
In the PM. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I appreciate you. If you don't mind, like and subscribe. I've got links to both of these gentlemen's work down in my description below. Go down there and like and subscribe to their stuff. Buy his book. Buy his stuff. Be wonderful. You guys have a great weekend and be safe and stay healthy.